Evergreen Show, taking your business from seed to sapling to towering giant. With your hosts, best-selling author and business growth experts Noah Fleming and Shawn Veltman. This is the only show that gives you proven, pragmatic, and immediately applicable business growth strategies every week in 15 minutes or less. Here's Noah and Shawn.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Evergreen Show. This is your host, Noah Fleming, with my co-host, Mr. Shawn Veltman. Shawn, give me the scoop, buddy. What's going on today?
Today is a gorgeous day. We've got all kinds of great publicity coming through for our new book. And more importantly for right now, I'm excited that today we're going to talk about that annual ritual of goal setting and New Year's resolutions and all of that good stuff.
Oh, it's coming up. It's coming up quick. So everybody's going to be hearing this on Boxing Day. We hope you've had an amazing Christmas. We hope you've enjoyed some wonderful food and dined really well. You've shared some gifts. More importantly, the gift of your presence. So if you're listening to too many podcasts today, listen to this one and then take a break, go spend some time with the family. That's my words of advice for today. So Shawn, we are talking about goal setting. We are talking about New Year's resolutions. We are talking about planning for 2018. Now, obviously, we should have got a lot of this done before Boxing Day, but but let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the pitfalls with goal setting, some of the challenges that come from goal setting, and some of the things our listeners can be doing to really hit 2018 out of the park, come out of the gate swinging, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. I think it's almost cliche at this point to start a discussion like this by talking about the fact that so many goals and resolutions fail, right? And it's not just at New Year's, though. I mean, you and I see people all year round saying, I'm going to do this or that. And how many times have we talked to people, Noah, where they spend more time talking about what they're going to do while we watch them do nothing that's in line with that?
Well, exactly. One of the things that I don't think companies do nearly enough is, well, the first thing, we can talk about goals. We can also talk about contingency planning. So, one of the things that, and I'm throwing you for a loop here, Shawn, I realize that, but one of the things that I've heard a lot of my clients say to me recently, or people that I've had discussions with, is things like, our industry is going through massive change. Things are happening in our industry, and so we're doing well, but we're just looking forward to next year and we're trying to figure out what to do. And so contingency planning is just as important as goal planning. For example, what would happen, if your business was like the oil industry and you had a, let's say, 50% drop in market price, which has happened in the oil industry over a 4-week period, or the stock market crash or your stock drop? Do you have the contingency planning in place? Do we want to talk about contingency plans?
I think we can. I think it's all part and parcel of the same thing. I think you're very right to bring it up, because when we talk about goal setting, we're talking about the happy path scenario, right? We want to achieve a 10% growth for next year, and we're going to do that by better customer service. Sure, why not? The flip side of that is, what's the thing or things that could destroy our business? And what are we going to do to make sure that we're on top, that we're more prepared than our competitors, that we're best able to handle if those things happen? And I want to be very clear here. The benefit of having these contingency plans isn't so that you can pull out that file at the end and know exactly what you're going to do. It's in the thinking that goes into them and the preparedness that comes up as you're making the plan. So there's an old general who said, plans are worthless, but planning is invaluable.
I like it. So the contingency plans, that's one side. And then, of course, like you said, we've got the happy-go-lucky stuff of really looking at what's important. And I think they're both important. To me, there's a few simple steps for really planning out your resolutions or planning out your goals. And I'm sure you're going to have some process here behind this. But for me, it's really simple. And you can tell me what you think of this. The first step is to identify what's important to you or your company next year. So if there is a big dramatic change happening in your industry, that's important for you to be paying attention to. The next step, which I like to do, is look back over the past year and be really objective and critical and give yourself an honest assessment of how well you did or how well you lived up to the type of company you want to be. And then the third step is really simple, creating a realistic plan to make sure you can keep moving forward, or to identify where those contingency planning areas are, where the problem spots are, reviewing your successes from the past year and asking how you can replicate. So to me, Shawn, when I do this, I have 3 simple steps. And I try and do this more regularly than on Boxing Day, but that's it. 3 simple steps. I identify what's important to me next year. I look back really critically about what happened last year, and then I try and create a plan moving forward. Now I'm going to throw it in your court and ask you, how do you do this?
Well, I think those are great steps, and I do something substantially similar. I think the key to what you said there was to do it much more frequently than once a year, and to keep really good records of what you've said you were going to do, what you've done, what got in the way. And by doing that, you're in a much better position to make some course corrections, to figure out what didn't work, what did work, what you can replicate, what you have to watch out for in the next period in order to really be ready for whatever's going to come up.
So, we talked about the pick 3 process recently, right? And so one of the goals I hear from clients and people I talk to, especially in the senior leadership department or the executives, is they say, Noah, I've been reading your stuff for a long time. I get what you're saying. So next year, I'm going to do a lot more personal outreach with our customers. And then, of course, they don't do it. And I hear this all the time. And the reason they don't do it is because it's a bad goal to just say, Noah, you're right. I'm going to do a lot more personal outreach right now. A better way to set that goal and to actually do that is to schedule 10 minutes in your calendar every week, perhaps every day, just like the pick 3. Schedule that time, make it sacrosanct that it has to get done. And now you've got an achievable goal and one that you can use to hold yourself accountable. And then, of course, the bonus points on top of that is actually having somebody to hold you accountable. Not sure I know anybody that could do that, but if there was 2 guys out there running a great firm that could really help companies with this, I don't know, maybe you know somebody, Shawn.
That would be a super high value proposition. Whatever you paid for that would be too little. I think your point there, Noah, about having the external accountability, it's critical, right? Because it's easy to put stuff in your calendar, and it's even easier to ignore it. What's hard is having to come up with an excuse week after week when you're telling somebody why you didn't do it. There's nothing more embarrassing than being a very successful senior executive who's saying, in effect, my dog ate my homework.
Yeah.
And, having that really make sure that you get done what's important. And here's a side benefit that most people don't talk about. If you're not getting it done, if you are finding yourself making those dog ate my homework excuses, what that means is that either it's not a high enough priority in reality, or you don't think it's a high enough priority. And either way, that demonstrates a disconnect between what you've said you're going to do and what is actually important. And investigating that disconnect is incredibly high value work.
Now, I think you just said something really valuable there, because this ties into a lot of the things that we talk about, a lot of the things that we say. But if the leader of the organization is making those excuses and creating those dog ate my homework examples, what do we think's happening in the rest of the organization? I mean, this is something you and I talk about all the time, right? People tend to do and create the same sorts of actions or create the same sorts of behaviors that they're seeing happen in the company, that they're seeing their leaders do. And so if that person can get away with not touching base with their customers and not really getting their work completed, then what else is happening? I mean, it's the same thing.
Exactly. It's what happens in micro is what happens in macro. It's what's the old saying that I love? It's how you do anything is how you do everything.
There you go. We should start to create like a favorite sayings type of thing, maybe a little database, and we'll see how many times you actually say that throughout these shows.
So that being said, we've talked about some of what I call the personality reasons for goals failing or for this type of thing not working. But what are some other mistakes that pop up in how we set goals or how we set targets, whether it's personally or corporately? I've got one, and I'll pass it back to you to see if you've got any others. But the one that I see most often is that we get too general and we think that we're going to find the time. So you touched on this a little bit earlier, right? Saying, I'm going to invest time and money in personalized customer outreach, versus saying, I've got a list of 15 things that I can do to reach out to somebody, and every day I'm going to reach out to 3 people and do one of those 15. And so there's no excuse at that point to not do it. And the more we can get very specific about what we plan to do, the more we can say, here's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to go through these 6 steps. It's going to take me 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour or whatever it is. And at the end of it, I'm going to know that I finished it. That gives you a lot better opportunity to course correct midway through if you realize, oh, I'm only ever getting to step 4 of 6. I'm not completing. Versus saying, I'm going to try to be better at customer service this year. How do you measure that? How do you know that you were better this year than last year?
Right. So I think everything you said there is bang on. I mean, in my experience, the things that I see most are very similar. There is no line of accountability. The goals are, too extravagant. So again, and they're unmeasurable. To say things like, we're going to provide better customer service, or we're going to give our customers more of a human touch and have more of a presence with them. The reality is all of this stuff is great and can be easily done. But just like we always say, it all comes down to making sure you have a process in place to actually do it, making sure you have the measurements in place to ensure it's happening, and creating the tools and the systems and the process to allow your people to do this. So great. You want to have better customer service next year. You want to have better outreach. Use something like the Pick 3 process and require, not if you want to do this, but require that everybody takes part 5 days a week. If you're at the office, this is what you have to do. This is now a part of your job. Just like filing your expense reports after your conference is part of your job. And that's, I think, the big thing we see too often. So companies come out of the gate in January, there's some new initiatives kicked off. Everybody's excited. But of course, what happens is, just like those people that all say this is the year they're getting into shape and going to the gym, by January 8th, the gym is empty because everybody made it for the first week, and then real life kicks back in and it's back to normal. The thing is, it has to be something that is sustainable. It has to be something that can become part of your process, part of the things that you do all the time. And just like a diet, just like losing weight, just like exercising, it has to be sustainable and it has to be measurable, but it has to be attainable in a way that you can stick with it. So, Shawn, I started this garage gym type of place not too long ago. And there are these, heavy workouts, tire flipping and throwing chains and ropes and running around dragging things. But the workouts are, it's sustainable. And I can see this as a lifestyle thing. It's, it's short workouts once a day. I go maybe 4 to 5 times a week, and I can stick with it. But if I come out of the gate next year and saying, you know what, I'm going to run 15 kilometers every day, or 15 miles for our American listeners out there, it's not going to happen, because I'm not going to be able to stick with it. So it has to be measurable, attainable, achievable. And that's, to me, that's the gist of it.
You talked about the sayings database earlier. Here's another one that I say very often, is that strategy isn't about what you want to do. It's about what you're willing to give up in order to do what you've just said you're going to do. And I think it's the same thing in goal setting. So you talk about doing this workout, and it's great because it's a short workout. So for you, what you're giving up there is the time, from the time you leave your house to the time you get back, and all the other things you could be doing there. But you've recognized that it's important to work out. And so it's worth giving up those things. And I think when we see corporate goal setting, when we see personal goal setting, that's one of the elements that we miss, is having people tell us, what are you going to give up in order to get here? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to get this goal? And one of the biggest areas that I see this is when senior leaders are creating goals or requirements for the people under them. And what we often tell them is, if it's important enough for you to require it from them, it's important enough for you to manage it, to monitor it, and to make sure that it's getting done.
Listen, Shawn, This is an exciting topic. I know we could talk about this forever, but as I said, it is the holidays, and I know people want to get back to their families if they're listening to this on Boxing Day. So I'm going to throw it to you first and ask you if you've got a challenge, and if not, I will certainly throw one out there. But what do you got?
All right, here's my challenge. Think about all the goals that you've set personally, professionally for next year. Pick the most important one. If it's general, if it's I'm going to lose weight or I'm going to get better at customer service, do better for yourself and make it specific. Create a very specific goal and then figure out what you're going to give up in order to meet that goal. What are you going to give up so that you can afford to commit to this goal? Write all of that down. If you don't write it down, if you don't take the time to think about it, even in that depth, you're definitely not going to be able to put in the hard time and effort to bring it to reality in the new year.
Okay, so bonus section of your challenge, which is be really critical with yourself and ask yourself, if you've set goals like this in the past, what was missing or what impacted you from reaching those goals? And ask yourself, as I mentioned earlier, in case we knew anybody that could help with things like accountability, ask yourselves, what do you need to hold yourself accountable? Do you need to get your spouse involved? Do you need to get a coworker involved? Do you need an outside executive coach? Do you need an outside firm to help you? What do you need to actually hold yourself accountable and make sure you reach those goals? So, Shawn, with that, we are a little bit over our 15-minute mark, but that's okay. Sometimes we can go over. It's like a little extra Christmas gift, a little extra Christmas bonus for everybody out there. Any last words from you today?
No, and if our listeners are concerned about us going over, just speed us up.
I think we sound better in 2x speed anyways. I'm trying to talk a little bit faster. Look, we're getting the hang of this. We're 24, 25 episodes in at this point. So this thing is doing well. We get a lot of great feedback, but we're going to close this out here now. So you guys, you know the routine. If you love the podcast, leave us a review. If you want to get in touch with us, send us an email off my website or email noah@noahfleming.com. Buy our book, Dealing with Difficult Customers, the book we wrote together. And of course, share this with your colleagues, your coworkers, and everybody else who's doing some serious goal setting right now. And let's really kick some major butt in 2018. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to join us each and every week for another great episode of The Evergreen Show with your hosts, Noah Fleming and Shawn Veltman. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on The Evergreen Show.